The wind screamed across Red Hollow like a warning. Boards rattled, signs creaked, and the dust turned the air to smoke. A storm was building, not in the sky, but in the silence that came before it. Evelyn Cole stood in the doorway of her ranch house, one hand on the frame, the other resting against the cold steel of a rifle. She watched the trail leading in from the east, the one her husband had ridden down 6 months ago and never returned. The horizon burned orange with another dying sun, and the dry grass bent low, whispering secrets she'd stopped trying to understand. From the road, a rider came fast. The shape cut through the glare, hat pulled low, coat flapping like a flag of dust. Evelyn didn't move. The rifle stayed still. The rider slowed at her fence, boots hitting the ground in a puff of red sand. "Evenin', Mrs. Cole." Sheriff Danner tipped his hat, but his eyes were wary, like a man walking through a graveyard he didn't trust. "Heard you're still out here alone." "Seems so," Evelyn said. Her voice carried no tremor. The sheriff shifted, chewing the inside of his cheek. "You know what I came to say? I don't need to hear it again. They're coming, Eve, Mrs. Cole. The Dusk Riders. Boone and his lot. Burned 2 ranches down the valley. They're talking land, talking lives. You can't fight that alone." Evelyn's eyes flicked past him, to the wind carving lines in the dust. "Then it's a good thing I'm not alone." The sheriff followed her gaze, the open plains, the graves on the hill, one marked Nathan Cole. He swallowed hard. "You still talk to him, don't you?" She didn't answer. "Leave by dawn," he said. "Please. Before sundown tomorrow, Red Hollow'll be nothing but smoke." The sheriff turned, climbed onto his horse, and rode off with the wind chasing him. His figure vanished into the haze, leaving only the sound of creaking boards and the slow ticking of her heartbeat. Evelyn stepped inside. The light from the setting sun slanted through the windows, painting the walls blood red. On the table sat a half-drunk cup of coffee, gone cold. She reached down, pulled the rug aside, and lifted a plank from the floor. Beneath it lay a box wrapped in burlap. Her fingers hesitated, then she pulled it free. The wood groaned as if it remembered. Inside, a revolver, old but clean, the metal glinting dull in the dying light. Her hand brushed the handle. The initials carved into the grip weren't her husband's, E.C. She closed her eyes. The smell of gunpowder, the sound of laughter in some faraway saloon, the echo of her own name whispered in fear. Eve Cutter. A breath left her lips, trembling only once. She snapped the revolver open, checked the chambers, 6 rounds. She closed it again, the click echoing through the house like a closing door. Outside, thunder rolled, though the sky was clear. Evelyn holstered the gun and lit a lantern. The walls threw long shadows that moved like ghosts. She walked past the mantel where her husband's hat still hung, untouched since the day he died. Her eyes lingered on it, then turned toward the window. Down the trail, a horse neighed. Somewhere out in the dark, a crow cawed once, sharp and lonely. She blew out the lantern. By the time night took the valley, Red Hollow was empty of sound. The saloon lights were dim. The few townsfolk that remained locked their doors, and whispers crawled between cracks in the wood. The widow's still out there. An old man in the saloon corner leaned toward the lamplight, voice rough as sandpaper. "They say she don't sleep, that she talks to the graves, waiting for him to answer. But the ones who killed her man, they don't sleep neither." The bartender said nothing, just kept polishing his glass, eyes fixed on the mirror. In its reflection, the door creaked open. A gust of wind, and then Evelyn Cole stepped in. The piano stopped. Boots froze halfway to the floor. Her dress was dark, her hat pulled low. A rifle lay slung across her shoulder. She walked straight to the bar, each step echoing like a hammer strike. "Whiskey," she said. The bartender poured without a word. Someone in the corner whispered, "Ain't safe out tonight. The riders will be coming through." Evelyn drank. The glass clinked softly against the counter. "Then they'll find me waiting." No one breathed. After a long silence, she turned, scanning the faces, fear, pity, and something else. Respect they didn't want to feel. "Anyone seen Boone?" she asked. A man at a card table looked down fast. "Ain't no Boone here, ma'am." Just ghosts. She smirked faintly. Then maybe I'll fit right in. She left before anyone could speak again. The doors swung in her wake, the wind following her like a companion. Back at the ranch, the storm found her again. The horizon was burning with the last breath of daylight. She walked up the hill to the grave, her husband's resting place marked with a rough wooden cross. She knelt, brushing the dust from his name. "They're coming for what's ours," she said softly. "But I reckon they forgot who I was before I was yours." The sky dimmed to blood and fire. Her hand rested on the revolver. "You once said I could bury the past," she whispered. "But some things don't stay buried." A crack of thunder rolled over the plain, though the clouds were still dry. She stood, wind whipping her hair, eyes fixed west where shadows gathered like riders on the edge of the world. She turned toward the house, every step steady. Inside, she hung her black coat by the door, loaded her Winchester, and sat at the table. On the wall, the clock ticked slow, marking the seconds until tomorrow's sundown. When it struck 9, she blew out the candle. Outside, coyotes began to sing, and somewhere out in that desert dark, a voice carried on the wind, rough, mean, and laughing. The Dusk Riders were coming, and the widow of Red Hollow was waiting. The first sound was hooves, steady, distant, too many to count. They rolled over the ridge like thunder with purpose, the kind of sound that makes men lock doors and dogs go silent. Evelyn Cole stood in her yard, rifle in hand, her dress fluttering in the rising wind. The morning light had barely touched the horizon when the dust began to lift, a long brown cloud, crawling closer. The Dusk Riders. She could smell them before she saw them, the stench of sweat, leather, and whiskey carried on the dawn. Then they came, 12 men on horseback, black coats snapping in the wind, each face hidden behind scarves and shadow. At their front rode Marshal Boone, tall, proud, with a tarnished badge still pinned to his chest like a joke no one laughed at. He reined in his horse before her gate, a grin spreading beneath his gray stubble. "Well, hell," Boone drawled, tipping his hat. "If it ain't Eve Cutter herself." The name cut through the wind like a bullet. Evelyn's grip tightened on the rifle, the barrel steady though her heart kicked once hard. "You got the wrong woman," she said. Boone chuckled. "That's so? 'Cause I'd swear them eyes could shoot a man dead from 30 paces. I seen it once, down in Laramie, wasn't it? You left 4 men on the floor and walked out like a ghost." The men behind him laughed, the sound coarse and ugly. Evelyn said nothing. Boone leaned forward in his saddle, the reins creaking. "Now, don't go getting shy on me, darling. We're just here on business. See, Red Hollow's dying. We're going to make something useful out of all this dust, and that means talking your land. You'll find it harder than you think." Boone smirked. "I don't think at all, sweetheart. I shoot, I take, I sleep good. Always worked." He nodded toward her ranch house. "You got till sundown to clear out. I don't care where you go. Hell, you can stay and watch it burn if you like. But come sundown," he spat in the dirt, "it's ours." He turned to ride off, then paused, his grin curling crueler. "Oh, and Eve," he said, glancing back. "You tell that dead husband of yours I said thanks for the land." Her rifle rose before the sentence finished, aimed dead center between his eyes. The riders froze, hands twitching toward their holsters. Boone laughed, a low rumble. "There she is. I knew she wasn't gone. Still got that devil fire inside." Evelyn didn't fire. "Not yet. You've got till sundown," Boone repeated, voice colder now. "Don't make me come back angry." He turned his horse, and the riders followed, their laughter trailing behind them like smoke. Evelyn watched them disappear over the ridge, the dust swallowing their shapes. Only when the sound faded did she lower her rifle. The silence that followed was heavier than any gunfire. Inside, the house was dim, the air thick with heat and dust. Evelyn set the rifle down and knelt by the trunk beneath her bed. Her fingers hesitated before lifting the lid. Inside lay memories wrapped in guilt, a gun belt, worn smooth from years of draw, a faded wanted poster with her face half torn, and at the bottom, a folded letter. She unfolded it slowly. The ink had bled a little with time, but the words were still clear. "If they ever come, remember who you were. Nathan." Her throat tightened. She traced his name once with her fingertip, then set the letter aside. She pulled the gun belt from the box, brushed the dust off, and fastened it around her waist. The leather felt heavy, not from weight, but from memory. On the table, a mirror caught her reflection. For a moment, she didn't see a widow. She saw Eve Cutter, the woman who once could outshoot any man this side of the Mississippi, the outlaw who vanished when she fell in love. She looked herself in the eyes and whispered one last time. Outside, wind rattled the porch again. By afternoon, the town had heard. In the saloon, men spoke her name in whispers. She's riding again, one said. Saw her holster the iron herself. The old storyteller, same one who always sat in the corner, leaned back with a grin. Told y'all she wasn't just a widow. Some say the devil taught her to shoot. Some say death himself ran when she smiled. The barkeep frowned. Don't bring that curse down on us, old man. Boone will burn this town to ashes if she stands up to him. The storyteller sipped his whiskey slow. Maybe, but ashes make good stories. That night, the horizon flickered orange. Smoke rose from the valley below. Another ranch set ablaze. Evelyn watched from her porch, the glow reflected in her eyes. Her heart was stone now. A horse neighed nearby, restless. She calmed it with a whisper, hands steady on its neck. They'll be back, she murmured, and I'll be waiting. She walked inside, shut the door, and lit the lantern. The flame flickered across the photographs on the mantel. Her husband's smile, the wedding dress folded neat in a chest, the life she'd built with blood and forgiveness. She took the lantern to the table, pulled a piece of parchment, and began to write. To whoever finds this, if I don't see tomorrow, bury me next to him. But know this, Boone won't ride again. Her pen stopped. She stared at the words, then folded the paper carefully and slipped it beneath the photograph. The wind outside shifted, a low, heavy sound. She turned toward the window. Down the trail, dark shapes were moving again. Lanterns swinging. Horses breathing steam into the cold. The dusk riders. Early. She blew out the light and grabbed her rifle. The world outside went red with the firelight of their torches. The sound of boots and laughter drifted closer, careless, confident. She took a deep breath, thumbed the hammer back, and whispered to the graveyard on the hill. Looks like I won't have to wait till sundown after all. Then she stepped into the night. Gunfire cracked through the valley before the sun had cleared the mesa. The first shot shattered the morning calm. The second tore a man from his saddle. The dusk riders scattered, cursing, horses rearing as bullets whined off stone. Evelyn Cole moved like smoke, unseen, steady, deadly. From behind the corral fence, she worked the lever of her Winchester, the rhythm calm as breathing. One rider lunged for cover behind a water trough. She fired once. He didn't move again. The smell of gunpowder hung thick in the air. Her shoulder throbbed where a bullet had grazed her earlier in the night, but she didn't stop. Her jaw was clenched, her eyes flat as slate. When the last of Boone's men fell silent, she knew he was still out there. The wind carried his laughter faintly from the canyon road, low, mocking, and close. Evelyn reloaded, each shell sliding home with a metallic whisper. The sun had risen just enough to turn the desert gold and blood red. Her breath clouded in the chill. She mounted her horse and rode toward the sound. The canyon waited like an open mouth, shadows deep, air still. Boone's tracks were fresh, cutting through the sand like scars. She followed them, careful, the reins loose in her hand, her body swaying with the rhythm of the horse. Halfway through the gorge, a voice echoed off the walls. You always did like playing Ghost, Eve. She pulled up, rifle ready. Boone stepped out from behind a boulder, revolver drawn, grin wide and cruel. His duster was torn, dust and blood mixing on his sleeve. Hell, woman, you ain't lost your touch. Half my boys are feed-in buzzards because of you. Evelyn's tone was flat. They made their choice. Boone chuckled, circling slow. You could have been a legend. You know that? Instead, you buried that gun and married a farmer. What did that get you? Her eyes didn't flinch. Peace. Peace. Boone spat. Ain't no peace for killers like us. He fired. The bullet tore the edge of her sleeve, close enough to feel the heat. She dropped low, rolled, and fired back, once, twice. Boone's hat flew off, dust exploding behind him. He grinned wider. There's my girl. They circled each other, the canyon echoing every heartbeat, every scrape of boots on stone. Boone's revolver clicked empty. He tossed it aside, pulled a knife. Always liked the close work, he growled. Evelyn holstered her rifle and drew her revolver, the old one with her initials. The world went still. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath. You think this'll fix it? Boone said. All the blood we spilled, all the names carved in our shadows. Evelyn's hand tightened on the grip. No, she said softly, but it'll end yours. They moved at the same time. A flash of steel, a burst of light, the sound of one gunshot splitting the day in two. Then silence. Boone staggered, knife slipping from his hand. He looked down at the red blooming across his chest. Guess you still shoot straight, he gasped. Evelyn stepped close as he fell to his knees. The sun caught the dust between them, glowing like fire. She knelt beside him, eyes hard but sad. You killed a good man, she said. Boone coughed, blood bubbling at his lips. He was in the way. Her voice dropped to a whisper. So are you. He tried to speak again, but the words never came. His body went still. The desert swallowed the sound. Evelyn stood slowly, her shadow long across the sand. The revolver hung at her side, smoke curling from the barrel. Above them, the sun began to sink toward the ridges, that burning hour between light and dark. The hour of reckoning. She looked at Boone's lifeless form one last time, then down at the revolver. Her reflection shimmered in its barrel. Tired eyes, hollow cheeks, the ghost of who she used to be. Her hand trembled just once, as she holstered the gun. By the time she rode back toward town, the sky had turned the color of fire. The wind carried the scent of mesquite and blood. Red Hollow lay quiet, doors bolted, windows shuttered. From the saloon porch, the old storyteller sat watching her approach, pipe smoke curling in the sunset. She dismounted slowly, her right arm wrapped tight against her ribs, blood seeping through the cloth. Evening, ma'am, the old man said softly. Heard shots out yonder. It's done, she replied. He nodded once, eyes searching her face. And what'll you do now? Evelyn looked toward the horizon. The sun dipped lower, the light wrapping the town in gold. Don't reckon I've got much left to do. He smiled sadly. You did what most couldn't. You faced your ghost. She didn't answer. Instead, she turned, walking to the edge of the street where the shadow of her ranch stretched long into the dust. There she stopped, her breath caught as a memory rose. Her husband's voice, soft in the twilight. When the sun goes down, promise me you'll always come back. She looked up, eyes burning with tears she'd never let fall. I'm coming home, Nate, she whispered. The wind lifted her hair, brushing it against her face like a farewell. She raised her eyes to the burning horizon, that last flicker of orange before the dark swallowed everything. The world seemed to hold still, just for her. Evelyn closed her eyes, pressed two fingers to her lips, and let the wind carry the kiss toward the dying sun. A kiss before sundown. When she turned back, the old man was gone. Only his empty chair swayed in the breeze, and the dust of Red Hollow drifted softly through the street. She mounted her horse once more, the saddle creaking under her weight. Blood stained her sleeve, but she rode upright, proud and silent. The last light caught her figure as she rode out. The widow of Red Hollow, the outlaw called Eve Cutter, the legend no man could bury. And when the sun finally slipped beneath the canyon's edge, the valley fell quiet again. Only one gunshot echoed faintly after, a sound swallowed by the wind, remembered only by the dust and the dying light. The fire crackled in the dark, throwing long shadows against the canyon walls. The night was cold, sharp with the smell of smoke and sage. A small group of travelers huddled close to the flames, their faces hidden beneath wide-brimmed hats and dusted coats. The youngest of them, a boy with hair too long for his hat and eyes too wide for the world, leaned forward. Tell again, he whispered. Tell about the widow of Red Hollow. The old man at the fire stirred the coals with a stick. His voice came low and gravel thick. Best stories ain't meant for comfort, boy. They're meant to keep you awake. He looked into the fire, and for a moment, his gaze went far beyond it, past the years, past the dust, to a place where a woman rode through dying light with a gun still warm in her hand. She weren't no ordinary widow, he began. They say she rode out a red hollow with Boone's blood still fresh on her boots, the sun sinking behind her like fire on the rim of the world. The boy leaned closer, wide-eyed. But she didn't die, did she? Folks said she just disappeared. The old man's eyes flickered. Disappeared, sure, but that don't mean she was gone. Wind held across the plain, carrying grit like knives. In the distance, a lone rider cut through the night, a dark figure moving steady under the silver wash of moonlight. Her hat brim low, her coat whipping in the wind. Evelyn Cole rode with the same silence that haunted legends. The land around her was endless, dry creek beds, bones of cattle half buried in dust, stars cold and merciless above. She didn't look back. Each hoofbeat echoed like a heartbeat in the dark. Her wound had healed to a scar. Her name had faded from the lips of lawmen and bounty hunters. But sometimes, when she stopped to rest her horse near a dying fire, she heard whispers in the wind. Boone's voice, her husband's voice, the ghosts of Red Hollow calling her name. She rode on. Back at the campfire, the old man took a sip from his tin cup. The flames painted his face in gold and shadow. They say she turned up now and then, he went on, when the law got too cruel, or when men raised hands against women who couldn't fight back. A shadow on the ridge, a shot in the dark, then gone again, before the dust even settled. The boy's eyes glittered. You think she's still out there? The old man smiled faintly. You ever ride through Red Hollow at sundown? The boy shook his head. Then you ain't heard how the wind moves there. It ain't just wind. Sounds like a horse's breath. Sounds like spurs dragging on stone. He leaned closer, voice dropping to a whisper. Some say if you listen close enough, you can hear her boots in the dust, walking beside you, making sure you keep your word. Thunder rolled far off in the desert, a low growl that trembled through the ground. Lightning split the sky, a silver crack that lit up the rider's face for a heartbeat. Evelyn's eyes caught the flash, cold, steady, alive. She slowed her horse near a half-broken fence where the land dropped into a valley. Below, a ranch lay quiet, smoke rising thin from the chimney, the sound of crying drifting faint on the wind. She dismounted without a word. A man's voice came from the yard, rough, angry, the sound of someone too used to being obeyed. Then came the slap. Evelyn's hand brushed her revolver. The world narrowed to breath, heartbeat, steel. She walked through the gate, each step silent but certain. When she came out of the shadows, the man froze mid-strike, hand still raised against the woman cowering before him. Her voice was low, steady. Put it down. He turned, drunk, sneering. Who the hell? The revolver cocked. One sound, the kind that made the air stop moving. Her eyes held his. You heard me. He dropped the belt. The silence afterward felt like judgment. Evelyn stepped closer, her coat lifting in the wind. You raise a hand again, she said softly, and you'll meet the same end as Boone. He swallowed hard, his bravado gone. She turned to the woman. Get your boy. Pack your things. There's a town a day's ride east. You'll be safe there. The woman nodded, tears cutting clean lines through the dust on her cheeks. By the time the thunder rolled again, Evelyn was gone, back into the rain, her shadow vanishing into the lightning's glow. The fire at the camp crackled lower now. The boy stared, spellbound, as the old man's voice softened. They say she was last seen riding into a storm that swallowed the sky. Folks who lived through that night swore they saw her hat brim flash once in the lightning, then nothing but wind. He looked up at the stars. But the next morning, that rancher who beat his wife was gone too. Nothing left but a set of tracks leading west. The boy's voice was a whisper. So she's a ghost? The old man chuckled low. Nah, son, ghosts don't bleed, and they sure don't ride that hard. He tossed another log on the fire, sparks rising into the night. She's what this land makes of a soul that won't quit. She's every woman who buried her man and still stood tall. Every drifter who didn't look away when the world turned mean. He looked at the boy, the flames reflected in both their eyes. That's what a legend is, kid. It don't die. It just changes shape. Far off, beyond the camp's reach, thunder rumbled again. A horse's silhouette crossed the ridge, a lone rider against the storm, coat trailing like a banner, lightning flashing around her. For a heartbeat, she paused at the crest, looking down at the world she'd left behind. The wind caught her hat, and she lifted her face to the rain. Then she rode on, into the dark, into the storm, and somewhere in the desert night, the whisper carried again, a name half lost to time, half born in flame.